What's going on, ladies and DeGents? Welcome back to the Distinguished DeGents podcast. You're one of many homes of degenerate gambling. I'm one half of the Distinguished DeGents. I'm Steve, Big Bucks of Beta, and joining me on my right is the guy on the right. The man formerly known as Jason Money Mansman. Guy on the right, you suck. Guy on the right, yeah, lots of complaints, but how's it going, buddy?
One complaint. Yeah, I guess I suck. No, it was I don't know. It was I think I'm overthinking things. I'm gonna go back to basics. First 4 weeks are over. Preseason's over. Wasn't a tough week for my Bills. Tough week for me. I think I had some good plays, but just not enough good plays. And this has really been a tough year. I mean, I feel like the public's getting crushed this year. It's been a really tough year to handicap. But you had a pretty good week, buddy. What's your
I mean, this wasn't my best week. I mean, I would say like in the first 4 weeks, this is week 3. Or let me rephrase. You know, out of the first 4 weeks, this ranks number 3 in terms of like my best weeks, in terms of how nice I did. I mean, really didn't do all that great ATS. I only went 6-9-1 on the pick spread from the lines that we handicapped it on the Friday show. Went 9-7 on the money line though, so it's like it feels like I'm like you said, we're on the right side of things. We have decent handicaps. It's just some of these games just did not go our way. And especially this week on the totals lines where, like, I got killed by, like, 1 point here, 1 point here, half point here. Like, like, was literally, like, felt like I was on the right side, just couldn't get enough of an edge to push the points that way. Betting-wise, though, I mean, sort of lucked out. I hate to say that, like, as a professional amateur bettor or, aka a distinguished DGent. My Denver ladder with the +7, +7.5, +8. Oddly enough, and we're going to get to that game, really wasn't a horrible sweat, but was getting close at certain points. But all 3 of those came in, so that was nice. My teaser plays, those were good, that came in handy, that got me some money back. Cashed out of my anytime touchdown parlay, got 2 units not 2 units. I got a unit back out of it. So stuff like that, and a lot of straight plays came in handy. Unfortunately for the Bills, they did not come in. That was one of my bigger bets I made that I probably should have held off on. But really what saved me, honest to God, besides Denver, my round robin bets. My round robins came in with my underdogs. Thank you to Mason Rudolph for saving my round robins and giving me 6 units profit this week. Because if it wasn't for that, I'd be breaking even.
Yeah, and we went 1-on-1 on the Monday night Cine bet, so I guess we're both going to be doing a Cine the next time we get together.
Next time we get together,
I got to get completely incinerated. It was kind of unlucky. I've had a bad stretch of having trials on Monday, but next time I'm gonna get incinerated because I'm overdue for some bad plays. I mean a couple just I think I'm not playing the spots as well as I have in years past. Like Buffalo, I should have realized that was a really bad spot for them. A couple other ones, I think like the Raiders. They were coming off a really bad loss, and I faded them. And then a couple just with the contest, unlucky. Kansas City, the contest was 8.5, and they won by 7. Couple missed. New Orleans, who I predicted correctly on the spread regularly. They were 1.5
Green Bay
in the contest. Lost that. It's like,
it definitely. Yeah, week 4 was just not a fluky week, but it just seemed like every public bettor that was on the public side either was just like dead wrong or just got barely screwed. And it wasn't like
and I
close.
need to evaluate that because I seem to be on the public side like every freaking week, and I don't know how. I feel like I'm making sharp plays, and then I look at the betting, and I'm like with the public, and it's really.
I feel like I feel like what's happening is like they're sharp. They're normally sharp plays, but because sports betting is like spreading and going through all these new states, the public is just, I mean, let's admit it, we've gotten better over the years just the longer we've been doing this. There's other people out there that probably been doing it just as long, if not just a little bit shorter. So I think like the quote unquote sharp plays are now becoming the public plays. But really the sharps have to stay on the edge of it and just say, wait a minute, like, well, if the public's on this side, does that mean it's the right side? And I think what's differentiating like the public versus the sharps, I think the sharps are looking at these spots like you mentioned and saying, well, does the spot make sense? Is the public correct? And if the answer is no, well, then they fade it. And I think that if it goes the other way too, I think sometimes just fading a team because it's a public side, that doesn't mean it's wrong. I mean, what was the one team I got really right? That was, I think Washington is a public dog against Arizona. There were sharps all over Arizona in this game, and I was the only one that kind of said, like, well, you know, I don't think Arizona really is that good. I think Washington's firing on all cylinders. They've looked better and better each week. Why are we... And we're getting points with them. This is not valued correctly. Ended up being on the right side there. We'll talk about that more in depth later, but...
Yeah, and I think to some extent I'm sort of playing the fade game a bit too much. Like, I'm that stock market trader who's like looking for the penny stocks to buy who are crumbling because it's like, oh, well, they've got to go up eventually, as opposed to betting some of the teams that are playing well and maybe just sort of riding with the hot hand. I know Arizona, that got me in trouble. I think Buffalo, that got me in trouble. Buffalo kind of annoys me because if I really thought about it, it really was the perfect spot for Baltimore. Going home, they really had a phony final against Dallas, and we'll get into more of the games. But just there are a couple plays, I'll go through them, where it's like looking back now with the side I picked, it was like, boy, that was really freaking stupid. And I just have to avoid doing that this week. And
there were spots for me, too, where it was like, I felt really lucky to be on the right side of it. There were other spots too where, you know, just 100% dead wrong. But my thing, I will say what I think has made me better this year was I go back to those losses. Instead of focusing on the wins, I've been looking at the losses more. And I've been saying, well, was this the right side to begin with? And I relook at my handicap, I re-listen to myself and I say, well, did that make sense at the time? You know, was I going with Joe Public? Was I listening to ESPN too much? You know, or was this the right side? And I just sort of got unlucky. This week especially, I really just feel like some of these spots just sort of got unlucky, or it was sort of a bad spot to begin with. Because like, there's really only 2 games, maybe 3. I probably would redo, if that. And obviously, we'll get into that as we go, but. Yeah, we got 15 games.
Cleveland, very easily.
Yeah.
They get a bogus holding penalty to lose. Kansas City, they miss the cover by 1.5 points. New Orleans literally gives up a 35-yard pass interference to lose. Dallas, they shank a field goal not to cover. So it's like the numbers. Yeah. I feel like the numbers ATS are bad. And it just seems like, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like I'm missing a few plays here and there by a couple of points, and it's just annoying me.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. But, yeah, like I said, we got 15 games. We got to recap. We got to go over our best bets. We got to go over some trends. Yeah. And then we got to get into our Thursday night pick.
And we'll go through it fairly quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do we'll do our best because you know us, but shit, I knew I forgot to do something today, but that's all right. We'll get to that later. All right, so first up, and speaking of, by the way, just so we can stay on track, we're going to introduce not just the scores, but we're also going to throw out the DeGents star of the game for each recap. just to give a talking point if we need it, or a focus point, just so we can stay on point. Don't forget anything. But let's move on. Cincinnati 34, Carolina 24. Cincinnati covers as a 4.5 point non-conference road favorite. Star of the game, DGen of the game, Chase Brown, 15 carries, 80 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, my quick takeaway here. The Panthers have sort of regressed. This is the one game, like, looking back, that, like, I think I just overreacted a little bit to the Bengals a bit too much. But at the time, they're 0-3. They can't win games. Their defense is still abysmal. That has not changed in this game. But I think I just overvalued the Andy Dalton-led Carolina Panthers. Literally 1 week after I faded the shit out of them against the Raiders, all of a sudden my handicap was like, well, they're good enough to beat the Bengals. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I didn't even think they were good enough to beat the Raiders last week. Why are they now good enough to beat the Bengals? That was like if I had to give the dumb play of the week, I think it was Carolina plus 4.5. But I think
did you have Carolina money line? Did you have Carolina money line?
No. No, I didn't. No, Carolina was not in my round robin. Thank Christ. But
yeah. I agree. I agree with the DGen of the week, by the way. That's who I was going to identify. Yeah, real quick. Feel like I had a good handicap with this one, and it looked like the game was going to be close, and it reminded me eerily similar to that Seattle game with Andy Dalton, where the game just ends 10 points. Like, I thought the Bengals would win. I thought it was going to be close, and it was close. Just a bit unfortunate at the end. Carolina couldn't get off the field in that last drive, gave up the field goal at the end of the game. Looked like Carolina had a chance to maybe get close, lose by a field goal. Wasn't meant to be. That I think actually was probably one of my better handicaps, even though it didn't work out. I feel like the game kind of went as I expected it. I expected it to be pretty close. I expected it to be an over type game. I did think Joe Burrow was going to throw more. That was a bit disappointing. I was surprised at the efficacy of Chase Brown. But all in all, not one of my worst picks. That was one of the money line picks I had. So, yeah, Cincinnati won. They needed to win. Going to be a lot tougher this week. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It's going to be a lot tougher. I think it's going to be a lot tougher for Carolina as well next week. Last point, this was my over of the week at over 47.5. So glad one of my best bets out of my top 5. That one came through for me. So that was a unit and a half back. Next up, unfortunately, we really got to talk about what was arguably the shit game of the week. Denver Broncos 10, New York. Sorry, I apologize, folks. I got that wrong. It's the New Jersey Jetropolitans 9. Let's not get into the Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers bullshit yet. We'll go ahead and jump right into the DGen of the week. DGen star, Cortland Sutton, 3 catches, 60 yards. Got Bo Nix's first touchdown on the year and in his career. This was, like, on the Broncos side. What is concerning is watching Bo Nix not be able to throw the football in the rain, which is really what I ultimately attribute the shittiness of this game too. Like, there were just so many scenes of trainers and sideline people for Denver just with towels trying to dry the football off, and it just seemed like every time Bo Nix went to throw a pass in the first 3 quarters, just couldn't get a grip. Don't know why. Don't know what the real problem was, considering he went to fucking Oregon, but just seemed like he could never pass the ball. And basically, the Jets, really all they had to do was stop the run because there really wasn't no pass offense. Wasn't until late in the third when the rain had kind of slowed down a bit, Bo Nix was finally able to throw. And once Denver got the passing game going, their offense was, like, honestly almost unstoppable up until they got to the red zone.
Yeah, I probably should have given, thinking about it, more of a look to Denver plus the points because the spread was high. This was just a very unexpected performance. I guess I bought into not so much that the Jets were great, but I thought they turned the corner in the sense of beating a very beatable team at home. Denver coming off a huge win on the road at Tampa, back-to-back road spot. Seemed like a perfect spot. And honestly, things sort of progressed the way I thought they would defensively. Bo Nix couldn't throw a pass. The Jets defense wasn't giving up anything. Bo Nix had 6 yards passing after the first half. But the Jets just came out completely unprepared. And it's one of those games, too, where, again, there's a part of me, well, I don't want to overreact and declare the Jets dead. But at the same time, they're going to London next week. We've seen this team come out completely unprepared, lackadaisical. And now, if you look at some of the stories coming out of the Jets, there's some finger pointing, complaints about cadence, complaints about coaching.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up, actually.
The Wolves are circling, and they are going to London against a very buttoned-up team with a good head coach. Not to give anything away, but tune into the Friday.
Yeah, definitely tune into the Friday show, folks. Here's my posing question to you. Speaking of the talks, in the press conference, they asked Aaron Rodgers, or they asked Robert Saleh about what they need to change on offense to be more, essentially to be more disciplined. And Saleh kind of came into the effects of like, well, Aaron Rodgers' cadence clearly isn't working. We're gonna have to make some adjustments with that. And then they bring it up to Rodgers, and he goes, I mean, we could do that. That's an option. Or like, I don't know, hold the team to a standard and like have some accountability. And isn't that like the most New York Jets thing to like have happen, is to have like a coach with no discipline or accountability for his players? And Rodgers coming, I don't know, like this to me is a battle where like you have that issue where the quarterback is like, you could just hold your people accountable. But then again, isn't Rodgers also like the old man talking like he's stuck in his ways and he's always right? He's been doing it for 20 years. There's no new, better way. It's just his way, or that's it.
Well, normally I'd agree with you about Rodgers. Here's what I'll say, though. The Jets for 3 years, and Robert Saleh in particular, who's trying to cling to a job, and you know our friends at Let's Talk Jets say this all the time. The Jets and Robert Saleh are very good at making excuses, justifying losses, not taking accountability. And I think that culture permeates all the way down the organization. The last thing you want in an ugly loss like that is for the coach to go and start passing the buck to other people. And he's done that for the 4 years he's been coach. Well, I didn't have a quarterback. Well, you know, the conditions were bad. Well, the penalties were bad. Well, you know, yeah, we had extra time to prepare, but that doesn't matter. Like, I'm just seeing some things from the Jets where you see the Titanic going downhill, and I think the Jets, again, you try not to overreact, but this looks like something where this is going to permeate and that the seams might be coming apart. You know, the fact that there's no accountability, and you know Rodgers, like, no offense, he's been in the league too long to take the shit from Robert Saleh, who's probably not going to have a job by this time next year. So
yeah, I don't think he has a job coming out of. If they go over in London, I don't think he has a job. And I think we get Nathaniel. And I think we have a potential for Nathaniel Hackett 2.0, and the Jets will just crater, and it'll be auto fade.
I mean, think about it. Normally, you'd say non-conference spot in London, Vikings are going to sleepwalk. 4-0, they don't need to win non-conference in London. It's the Sam Darnold revenge game, buddy. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You better believe they're not sleeping on that game.
No. And not with the way that defense has been playing, especially, which, I mean, that really is my only concern, is the Jets' defense. Is this going to be the wake-up spot for them? I have no faith in Nathaniel Hackett still.
I think I already have my Vikings -2.5 bet in.
Nice. Yeah, last point I'll make, and this is the Aaron Rodgers take that no one else will talk about or dive into, because everybody has been basically shitting on Saleh, being like, what the fuck are you doing? You're a loser. Why are you talking shit? And it's like, that's fair. On the other hand, though, he is the head coach. And your job as the head coach is to make the entire team work. It's not to make the quarterback happy. It's not to, do whatever his offensive coordinator says. You have to make the whole team work. You have to do it as a team. And no offense to Rodgers, he's been doing it for 20 years. He's going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about that. And honest to God, Aaron Rodgers' cadence and snap count is like his biggest weapon. That is like one of the there's no other quarterback in the NFL I have ever seen that has a better cadence.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is working his way up.
I think 19, the most free play touchdowns in NFL history from a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, that's like your biggest strength. So I think for Saleh, it's like, hey, dipshit, why wouldn't you play on his biggest strength? And why wouldn't you hold this offensive line accountable? No offense to Rodgers, though, like, he went to the Jets acting like it was still Green Bay with Matt LaFleur and Mike McCarthy. Where, no offense, like, the Green Bay is a well-established, no-nonsense organization where this kind of shit just doesn't happen to begin with. They invest in their O-lines. They're one of the earliest teams, I think, to do that to begin with. The Jets aren't. You go into the Jets acting like you can make this Green Bay, it might not work. And I don't think that potential really hit Rodgers. And I just think if you're Saleh, I don't think you bring it up in the press conference. I think it was just wrong timing. But I think there is a point to bring up to Rodgers saying, hey, your current cadence is not working with this O-line. Now we have all these penalties. We need to adjust.
Here's my last point on this. This is the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Rodgers, older, wants to go to a team where it's going to be more loose. He's going to have more control. He's not going to have a coach up his ass like he did in Green Bay. The downside of that is instilling that discipline in the rest of the team when you literally don't have a coach up your ass, no discipline, no accountability, and you get whatever you want. That's why it was so hard what Brady did to go to Tampa. But they were lucky they had a Bruce Arians, an established NFL head coach that commanded respect. Unfortunately,
and they also had real quick, they had Todd Bowles as well at defensive coordinator, another guy who was well established in the NFL.
Yeah, two respected, established coaches. And I think what the Jets are missing, the biggest problem is, Rodgers didn't want to get a boot up his ass, but they have a guy in Saleh who, no offense, for 3 years has not really commanded respect. And I don't think he's a good head coach. I think he's a good rah-rah guy, nice man, but doesn't necessarily command the respect of the players. And, I mean, they completely no-showed. I'm shocked that they lost the game. I thought for sure the Jets were going to find a way to win, but they couldn't even do that.
Yeah, no, so crazy. And both teams missed a field goal as well, too. So for those of you saying Jets should have won, well, Denver missed one, too. So, all right, moving on. The Atlanta Falcons, 26. New Orleans Saints, 24. Saints covers a 3-point road division dog. This is a double-edged sword because I didn't want to give out a stud that wasn't on the winning team, but Taysom Hill got 2 touchdowns in the game for the Saints. The Atlanta Falcons won this game with 0 offensive touchdowns. Falcons defense special teams got 2 of them. And with Younghoe Koo gets the points at the last second to win the game. Mansman, I know you're going to say this is a fraud win due to a 30-yard pass interference, but other than that, what is your general takeaway?
Why? Well, I told you at the end of the game when the Saints scored, Falcons were going to win the game. This is a Saints loss, and why it's going to be time for Dennis Allen to go bye-bye. How many times have we seen the Saints lose a game like this? Like, this is how the Saints lose.
A lot.
They go, and Carr puts up a mediocre performance, and they lose a close game right at the very end. I don't really have much to say about the game. I mean, really, this is the Saints' MO. This is who they are. This is who they're going to be. They're going to be a 500 team. I think with them, it's like if you're getting points with the Saints, you always want to look to bet them. If they're favorites, you always kind of want to look against them. it worked out
Yeah.
for me betting the Saints. I think that was actually really my big hit for the week was on the Saints, or maybe it was someone else. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was probably like ended up being my best bet of the week, like my sharpest handicap. And the Falcons, I mean, they just they're okay. Like they won a game they had no business winning. And I feel it's a lot like the Eagles game where you sort of felt like they were outplayed and found a way to win. They're treading water. Kirk Cousins, looks as I expected him to look, not great. I don't know if anyone's running away with this division though. So we'll see if Atlanta could turn it on now that the first 4 weeks are over.
I mean, I will say my Tampa Bay to win the division bet is looking better and better each week I see these teams. You put it you put it really wisely though when you said Atlanta's treading water. I would say they're treading water with two 10-pound ankle weights holding them down at the same time. Those two 10-pound ankle weights are, literally the Atlanta Falcons organization. I just don't. It just seems like for whatever reason, all these weapons, all these studs on this team. You had a Kirk Cousins who went from Washington to Minnesota and made studs out of Stephon Diggs, made stud out of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Like, it was a guy who could he knew how to operate an offense, at least to a decent degree. And it just seems like in Atlanta, he's like another Matt Ryan. Like, I literally see no difference.
Here's what I'll say. I think these got to be two of the most disappointing teams in football. Like Atlanta on paper, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. And they kind of remind me of some of like the Jets' weapons, some of the Browns' weapons. Like a lot is made about how great they are. And they never show it on Sunday, really, any consistency. I mean, Tyler Algier led the Falcons in rushing again. Like, it's just... but
why is Tyler Algier leading rushing? Like, I mean, can we start with that? Why are you not throwing to Kyle Pitts? 0 for 0. I mean, this O-line on the Falcons, too. They could go.
Yeah, their O-line. They still have those injuries. It was... It's just so weird because the Saints, I feel like both of these teams probably should be better, and they're just not. These are two teams. They're going to be 8-9, 9-8, 500 teams. That's what they are.
Yeah, last point I'll make, and just to summarize it all as well, like, Falcons should have lost. They ended up getting the win. Saints probably should have won, and they just choked another game away in typical Derek Carr Saints faction. Just... yeah, not what you want. Really, sort of a bad beat if you were a Saints money line bettor here, but this is why sometimes you take the points. It's games like this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially 3 at 3. That was crazy.
Yeah, I took it at 2.5, and I still ended up losing, which was unfortunate. But luckily though, this game kind of came back and brought it for me. Minnesota 31, Green Bay 29. Minnesota wins and covers as the division road underdog. Big Dick Darnold, 20 for 28, 275 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception late in the second half. Here's my concerns going into the London game with Minnesota. We're highly praising and touting them. They almost blew this game in a very ugly fashion. Their defense Brian Flores almost blew this game. Like, they had this game and they were running away with it, and then late in the fourth, it was like Green Bay was mounting the comeback, and then just wasn't enough to get the job done. But now Minnesota traveling against a Jets team who, as we mentioned, a lot of pestering annoyances, a lot of contentious problems with the Jets organization. Is this the week where the Jets kind of unify and get together and they beat up on this Minnesota team who, let's be honest, only a 2.5 point road favorite now, technically, neutral site. Probably if they were actually at home, they'd be 4.5 point favorites. But on the other side, it's like the Vikings were underdogs at opening in this matchup. And now the line flipped.
Well, here's what I'll say. I could get why early in the year you would put it that way, but I think as it stands now, the line is right. I think I want Vikings under 3. I don't want Vikings 3 or more. Um, that's a weird game because it's just coaching. Like, who
Yeah.
do I trust to do the London trip? And there's already talk that the Jets are going to fly out on Thursday like they normally do. Like the Bills did the same thing. They flew out their normal time. They came out completely lackluster and got schooled by the Jags in London. I think the Jets did this last time, and they looked completely unprepared in London. Remember that was the game Matt Ryan and the Falcons beat them. So,
Yeah.
in terms of who do I trust more, I trust Minnesota's coaching staff, and I always get afraid in these games because I think there's a chance of overreacting the other way. This game, just to give you an idea, the Vikings come the second quarter were 90% to win, and they pretty much stayed at 90% for most of the game. When the Packers were making their big comeback, 83% was the lowest percentage that the Vikings had to win the game. So essentially, while Green Bay made a big comeback, pretty much for most of the game, the Vikings were 100% to win. Like betting on Green Bay, there was no point where I thought that Green Bay was going to win. So I think we have to be careful because I think Green Bay is going to get a lot of flowers based on the comeback. I think the Vikings, it wouldn't surprise me if people a little hesitant to bet on them. I feel like the line is kind of where it should be. I would not go, and you know what's going to happen. The Vikings are going to get bet up to 3.5. There's going to be people betting 3.5, and the Vikings are going to win the game by 3, and everyone's going to lose. But
Yeah, I mean, I could foresee that happening. Minnesota is also. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just I like the way the Vikings performed. I thought they performed well.
They performed like a cohesive team. They performed like a Vikings team you saw against the San Francisco 49ers. They looked like how they did against the Giants. But, unlike, I would say, the Commanders, who I think have played worse teams, Washington seems to like progressively be getting better, but they're playing worse teams. The Vikings are playing stiff, tough competition. They're playing at the same level, though. It doesn't seem like they're better or worse. They're at a good baseline. And it's like, can you beat that baseline? And it's just like time and time again, it doesn't seem like teams can keep up.
And
so that's
honestly,
my takeaway for that.
You could make the case they're getting a drop in class this week. I don't know if the Jets are as good as San Francisco, Green Bay, or Houston for that matter. I think I'd honestly favor all 3 of those teams against the Jets right now.
I mean, considering the Niners beat the Jets, I mean, that's easy pickings right there. Minnesota's also traveling to London on Thursday for a Friday morning arrival. However, TJ Hawkinson set to return to practice this week as well. So just keep an eye out for you Vikings futures bettors. All right. I am going to introduce this game, and then I will be really, really quick right back. Because I don't really want to talk about this, but I'm going to have to give a take. But like I said, I'll be very, very fast. Pittsburgh 24, Indianapolis 27. I wasn't sure who to give the stud to, so I gave it to fucking Flacco, who went 16 for 26, 168 passing yards, 2 touchdowns in a game where he came in late for the injured Anthony Richardson. Mansman, go ahead and give your take. I will be right back.
Well, I think this was an unfortunate handicap because you handicapped the game, Pittsburgh winning against Anthony Richardson. Now, he was driving the ball, but I didn't give him much hope to last the full game against the Steelers defense. And look, Joe Flacco, he's not going to wow you, but he's going to play a consistent, straightforward game, give you a professional performance. And we saw this Colts team last year with a professional quarterback. They were, they were either close to being a playoff team or a playoff team. So I think that's the story of the game. Pittsburgh will be fine. This is just kind of how it goes with Pittsburgh. They get favorited. Sometimes they drop games like this. I think they'll be fine. Their defense did not perform particularly well, But again, weird situation, quarterback change. I think Flacco's a big improvement. I'm not a big fan of Richardson. I think he had the chance to make a few turnovers that would have hurt him in the game. I did think Pittsburgh would perform a bit better, but all in all, I think the Steelers will be fine. Another game where Indianapolis pretty much controlled the entire game. The closest it got, fourth quarter, Indianapolis 71% chance to win, but pretty much throughout the whole game they dominated the game. So that bears in mind. And pretty much Flacco was in for the whole game. So he gave a steady performance, and that's how the Colts are going to win games. They're going to run the ball, and Joe Flacco providing a steady performance. I have to look. I don't know if Anthony Richardson's out for any length of time, but I actually suddenly like this Colts team with Joe Flacco at the helm.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I don't. Bro, I'm not going to lie.
Than I did before. I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl contender, but just a little bit more than I did with Richardson.
See, and I'm just like, I think Anthony Richardson's having an off year. I think it's a sophomore slump. This was a game where, like, I looked back and I don't think I handicapped this one wrong. This was my best bet. It didn't work out well, obviously, but I mean, this was a game where, like, the Steelers got off on the wrong foot, but they did a lot on offense against a tough Colts defense this year. Where, I mean,
where the Colts have been susceptible to the run. That was surprising.
Yeah, they were susceptible. Justin Fields ran 2 of them in. He got 55 rushing yards. But Cordero Patterson was the leading rusher with only 6 carries. That was unfortunate. Justin Fields going 22 for 34, 300 yards in the air, but only 1 touchdown. Really, like, I think the narrative for this game, the Pittsburgh defense just let the team down here. And the minute Joe Flacco came in against the Steelers, I was like, fuck, it's over. There's no chance of a comeback. Because Joe Flacco has played the Steelers team, I mean, at least, 20 times now, at least, or maybe more. Like, if anybody could beat Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, it's going to be Joe Flacco. So, that was a bit unfortunate. I don't know if I really love Flacco for the rest of the year, though, over Richardson. I don't think it really makes a difference for this Colts team. Because, again, the problem is, are they going to be able to be consistent? Are they going to find the deep ball, which I think they struggled against? Are they going to be able to game manage their way to a win? I mean, in all honesty, just looking at how the game played out, it was, 17-0 by the second quarter, 17-3 at halftime. But Justin Fields put it within 1 score. And then they were 1 score again. And it was just like they couldn't keep up. That's really what it came down to. Joe Flacco didn't really explode in a way that, like, Andy Dalton did against the Raiders. He kind of just, like, kept them in the game, kept them 1 score ahead. That's really what it came down to here. So, I mean, but I think if it was Anthony Richardson still in, I think they find a way to blow it. Not sold on the Colts team. I'm not ready to be out on Pittsburgh after this performance. I still think Justin Fields should be the starter despite the loss.
Yeah, no, definitely. Fields is fine. The Steelers are fine. They dropped the game in a weird spot where they were preparing for one quarterback, got another. Although they didn't start the game off well. Like I said, surprising. I think it's helpful to sometimes look at these percentages because I feel like you look at this game and you think, wow, this was a pretty close game. Indianapolis was pretty much 80 to 90% to win the whole game. So they really they dominated maybe more than the score suggested. So
I mean, I don't know if dominated is the word. I think they just were. Flacco was good enough to keep them ahead. If you really watch the game, if you really look at how it went down, they kept them ahead. The minute they got within 1 score.
Out of the 3 games that went 21-0 against me, Pittsburgh was the one I thought the Steelers were going to find a way, and they just never did.
Well, they just couldn't keep up because Flacco came in, and every time it was within 1 score, he found a way to get a touchdown or found a way to get them in field goal range, which is what decent quarterbacks do. So, I mean, props to Flacco. That's why he's the DeGents stud of the game, because he came in, got the win, kept them ahead the whole time, did his job. So, With that said, someone who didn't do his job, Matthew fucking Stafford, my dog of the week, your dog of the week. Rams 18, Bears, Caleb Williams 24. DeAndre Swift gets the honors here, folks. 16 carries, 93 yards, 1 touchdown. Actually useful for once, folks, was DeAndre Swift. Really, that was the difference maker in that win for me, was that the Bears found a way to utilize the rushing game for once. They limited Caleb Williams' passing attempts, limited his opportunities to fail. And really, what it still came down for me was that Matthew Stafford couldn't fucking do a thing right. It just seemed like everything wrong went for the Rams. Everything right went the way of the Bears. And even towards the end, it was still a 6-point game in a spot where Stafford probably could have came back and, led a drive. Just couldn't seem to get the offense in sync. Couldn't seem to be clicking. But, yeah, other than that, I mean, Matthew Stafford with that that was a real bad interception by him, too. I think that was a killer. This was another game where it was like, not sure if betting the Bears was ever the right side here, but I'm paying more attention to them now. I'm not going to just completely discount them just because it's Caleb Williams.
I got to say, this was a much closer game when you look at the percentages. The Rams pretty much were favored to win in the first half, and then the Bears sort of not took control in the third quarter, but things started to swing their way. I just think the Rams defense isn't any good. And this was one where this to me should have been, and I'm going to do this more, and I said I was going to do this more, and now I'm going to do it more. This should have been a no-bet game for me. Like, I know for our contest, we have forced picks, and it's fun, and, we're playing for our case, but this should have been a no-bet game. LA gets a last-second win against their arch rivals in a game where, let's be honest, they probably had no business winning. And then, oh, my God, they're underdogs to the Bears? This is easy. And the Bears finally, this is how they should play. Caleb Williams not losing the game and then being able to run the ball. The problem is I don't think the Bears are going to be able to run the ball every game. I think the Rams defense is really bad. I think it showed. And unfortunately, I think the Rams are in trouble. I think the Rams are not a good team. Like, I think they got really lucky in that San Fran game. It bought them a little love. They're 3-point underdogs at Green Bay this week. I'm not going to say any more else for the Friday show, but I'm not high on this Rams team at all. I don't really think they're good. I think they were very lucky to have a win, and I think they're being heavily upgraded, maybe more than they really should be.
I'm gonna throw you some numbers and some stats real quick, and it'll get to my point. 322 yards of offense for the Rams, 264 for the Bears. 133 passing yards to 203 from Matt Stafford. 21 first downs to 17. 5 for 11 third down for the Rams. 3 for 9 for the Bears. Each had 3 sacks allowed. The Bears had 5 punts, 10 penalties for 84 yards. Lost time of possession by 3 minutes. Still ended up being in control of the game. Still ended up winning. This is why I say, I think the Rams just had an off game. I think in most situations with this Rams team, even with the injuries, on paper, I would think the Rams would find a way to win this game. The Rams would be the one in control. And really, they just weren't. It just seemed like they had every opportunity, every chance to take the lead. And, Matthew Stafford, 20 for 29, 224. Kyron Williams, 94 rushing yards on a touchdown. They did everything sort of like they did last week with the Niners. It was just that the Bears, that's why I say, now that they got DeAndre Swift moving, now that they're able to spread the offense out, Caleb Williams doesn't have to throw 50 times a game and throw and scramble and get sacked 5 times. They might win closer to their win total if they keep playing that way. I don't think they beat the Rams every time like this, and I don't think that this loss by the Rams should be written off as that they're a shit team. I think they're inconsistent. And I think finding out what consistency they do have is what I'm going to be looking at for week 5.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard. The Rams are a tough team to figure out because they actually, despite being behind Detroit, they played Detroit really well. They beat San Fran, although that was phony. San Fran pretty much 80% to win the whole game, and then they won at the very end. And then this game was close. I don't know. The Rams are just a tough team to figure out. I don't know. I'm not that high on the Rams. Maybe I'm a little more down than other people, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. This game against the Packers is going to be real interesting for them. Real interesting game.
Yeah, I think it is for sure. Oh, shit. There we go. Just did my live bet, and we're going to talk about the next game here. It's the Philadelphia Eagles 16, Tampa Bay 33. Baker Mayfield's DeGents stud of the game, 30 for 47, 347 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty sure he had the most passing yards on the week. I'll double check that line. But yeah, looks like Baker Mayfield MVP tickets are back in, folks. Beat the shit out of a weak Philadelphia Eagles defense at home. And yeah, now Baker Mayfield's MVP again.
I should have trusted my handy because I was high on Tampa. Should have trusted my preseason handicap.
Yeah, this was Donko pick number 2. I fell for the trap that this opened at higher than -1.5. I'm getting a lower number. Therefore, it makes sense to bet Philly. And it was like, no. Like, I really should have done a better job of handicapping this game. I was down on Baker, thought that, like, the Denver regression was bad. But then, like, the truth about the Denver-Tampa Bay game is that the Denver Broncos defense might be for real. They might be the reason why Denver gets to their win total. I don't think it'll be Bo Nix. But the Denver Broncos defense, they kept them in the game against Seattle. They kept them in the game, to be honest with you, week 2. They beat the Buccaneers in that game, week 3. Week 4, they beat the Jets because their defense shut down Aaron Rodgers. And, you know, Breece Hall couldn't remember how to tie his own shoes. The Philadelphia Eagles defense, on the other hand, is Swiss cheese. And let Kirk Cousins come back on them. Let Jordan Love go for, I think, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think the number was. Looked like dog shit Monday night. Looked like dog shit the week after against the Saints. But, you know, we kind of said, like, oh, well, they stopped Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara, and then they only won, 17-15? Something stupid like that. Like, so I don't know why I was high on the Eagles after, like, that crazy win. I should have just, like, stuck to my guns and been like, maybe it was just a bad spot for Tampa, and maybe that catching points with them at home was the better play. Like, yeah, I don't know. Donko handicap, Donko pick. Lost money on this one, but we'll be better next week.
Yeah, I was stupid. I got suckered by the Sharps, and if I really thought about that Saints game, the Saints pretty much were winning through 3 quarters, and I let myself be suckered by the Sharps, who talked about what a great game the Eagles played. They really should have beaten the Saints by 70. It was a phony final. And I was like, oh boy, I'm really and I should have trusted my preseason handicap where I said I think Tampa's going to be okay. And I think Thursday night you're going to see my pick is very much in line with trusting my preseason handicap, not overreacting too much to some of the recent bias. Yeah, that was an ass kicking, and the Eagles are just one of these teams. I feel like there's a lot of teams in the NFL where it's like, what are they? Like, I don't know what they are. Saquon Barkley, he had one big run, but then pretty much did nothing. And this was another game where it was Tampa early, and they were 99% to win basically the whole game. So it was an
Eagles have Eagles have an identity crisis without Jason Kelce. It's so weird, but like they do. Like the tush push is now starting to fail. Jalen Hurts is looking like 2021 Jalen Hurts, not 2023 or 2022 Jalen Hurts.
Maybe a few receivers come back. That's the one thing. They do have the injuries at receiver. That could play a role.
I guess, but Dallas Goedert dropping balls, Jalen Hurts not really being a lead. I mean, like, if you watch the press conference, it was like, it seemed like he's just so dismissive of Nick Sirianni. And Eagles Nation right now, they're basically like all out on Nick Sirianni. They think he's the problem. Bro, I think it could be Jalen Hurts. I don't know if Sirianni's.
Isn't there a rumor that like Sirianni and Hurts literally like don't talk to each other?
It might be the case.
Yeah. Eagles got a bye at the right time. They needed a bye in the worst way.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Last 1 o'clock game. Jacksonville 20, Houston 24. Jags covers the 6.5 point division road dog. Don't get the win though. Houston with the last minute victory. Nico Collins, DeGents stud of the game. 12 catches, 151 yards, 1 touchdown. And what does that get him? That gets him put on the IR designation due to his injuries. He will be out till week 8. Yeah. Here's what I was right about. The Texans are not as good as I had anticipated. Took the Jags coming off the big loss as an underdog. The dubbed close your eye special plus 6.5. Never had a sweat about the 6.5 here. Unfortunately, I had the money line in my round robin that did not hit, but that was a bit unfortunate. But the 6.5 was like a no sweat for me. That was one of my better locks of the week. Houston, I have so many concerns with them now just after having rewatched that game a little bit. Just seems like CJ Stroud he may not be as good as people put him out to be. And it just seems like they constantly struggle on offense to get production at any capacity.
A sophomore slump. If you want to talk about sophomore slump, he is in a sophomore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what's your take on this game? Because, I mean, I know we could go into how Jacksonville's 0-4 now. By the way, Jacksonville being the last winless team on the year at 0-4. So, for those of you who got those tickets, congratulations.
I
mean, the Jags are just falling from grace. I don't understand, like, how they lost this spot outright. I mean, they had the chance to win.
Here's what would scare me. Houston 3-1, negative point differential. That is never a good sign. The trend lines here, early handicap, and I think I'm about to make another early bet the more I look at like this game. Houston has basically a negative 15 point differential at 3-1. Their best receiver is out injured. The Bills are coming off an embarrassing loss in prime time. I know Buffalo's on the road, but boy, at -1, if you could get Bills -1, close to pick them.
They're plus right now. They're plus on draft. Oh no, it flipped again. I got the Bills +1, not 1.5. I think I got Bills +1.
Shit.
The line keeps flipping.
Definitely.
But I got Bills. Sorry, I was gonna say I got Bills money line plus money. Like for getting points. I got
Houston right now is getting that. That's pretty much a pick'em game. But putting that aside, look, we got the handicap. We said Jacksonville. It was a toss-up game throughout. I actually had Jacksonville money line. I thought they might pull out the win. Bit unfortunate to lose at the very end, but you're 100% right. It was a toss-up game really throughout. CJ Stroud had a lot of good numbers, but not a whole lot in terms of yardage, or not a lot in terms of points, excuse me. They really couldn't run the ball that well. Maybe this team's missing Joe Mixon. I don't know.
Maybe, but even with Joe Mixon in week 1 against the Colts, they were playing from behind. They weren't really in the lead.
Houston feels like a pretty fraudulent team to me. I got to look at I'm going to take a quick look at some of their other games. The Vikings, they were completely destroyed, never close.
Chicago, they were like duds. But Caleb Williams sucks.
They were pretty much predicted to win, so it was like fairly comfortable throughout. So nothing.
Oh, and there was the field goal they missed, right?
Yeah,
for the cover in that game. So
like you were right about the Colts game. See, this is helpful. I got to start doing this more. My thinking with the Colts game was that Houston was pretty comfortable throughout, but they were pretty much 50, 60% throughout the whole game. So that was kind of a toss-up game as well. Yeah, Houston really, the point differential, you look at the percentages, they're not as good as their record says. They're a phony 3-1 team, and I'll tell you what, I'm looking to that puts me on the fade list for the Houston Texans. I'm looking to fade them every opportunity because those teams, eventually you regress to the mean and your luck's going to run out eventually.
I will say this for the upcoming game, it is an early handicap. I would wait and see if on these mobile sports books, if you could get like a 30% like money line boost, or if you could get even a 10-15% money line boost at any of your books, I would just wait. And then if you could get the Bills plus money with or without any of those boosts, hit the Bills then. Right now it's dead even on FanDuel. They're minus 120 on Fanatics. I think on DraftKings they're like minus 118.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll double check real quick here. Yeah, minus 118. So, I mean, this is the game you shop around for to get your best number. But I think you also look to see who's going to give you a boost to give them a bet. Because I feel like come game time, there's going to be a lot of sharp bettors coming in. And they're going to try and want to even it out.
Yeah, I'm just curious who the sharps are going to go with. I mean, I know right now when you look at the percentage of bets, Action Network, 47-53 in favor of the Texans. So pretty much even.
Bills. I mean, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? Just as a side note, like the Bills are not getting the money. They're not getting the spread. They flipped from a dog to a favorite now. It seems like the sports books are doing the opposite of what the bettors are putting money in. Seems a bit strange.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see. I mean, I'm curious what the sharps are going to do. And maybe they're concerned about teaser potential with the Bills. I don't know. I mean, that could be a couple sharps talking about teasing the Bills because they, other than the last game, literally had been like 4 years since they lost the game by more than a touchdown.
47 games.
Yeah, maybe that's teaser protection. Could be.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I don't know. I would think to start looking the other way too, but that's all right. Into the 4 o'clock slate. I don't have much for this game, but here's your stuff. Jordan Mason, 24 carries, 123 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. San Francisco, 30. New England, 13. Niners cover as a 10.5 point home favorite. Non-conference road team as well for the Patriots. The over 40.5 hits as well. Do we put New England on auto fade? That's really what this comes down to for me.
Well, to be fair, right now, the Patriots are currently a favorite against the Miami Dolphins at home.
Oh, I don't know.
My money. No, I can't.
I can't.
New England is who we thought they were. And with Ramondre Stevenson getting fumbleitis, I mean, that's their offense, Ramondre Stevenson. So if he's no good, and they refuse to play Drake May, like this, I'm done with New England. I'm done with this game. I really didn't learn anything. New England, they are who we thought they were. The Cincinnati Bengals game, it might as well be an eternity. They're not good. You want to bet New England as a favorite? You want to be a clown? Good luck to you. But there's other games on the slate. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not.
You know, I might have to go bet New England now that you said that, just to see if I can prove a point.
Look, if you win, God bless you. Me, there's no reason to back them as a favorite. Like, it's just not. Like,
not with your money.
And it's not
Not
going
with
to be
your
with
money.
my money. But you know what?
All right.
There are 64% of bettors who disagree with me. So what are you going to do?
Oh
Right,
God, New England is a public favorite. I can't do it. All right, moving on. Washington 42, Arizona 14. This should have been my fade of the week. That was my lesson. I made it the Broncos, and luckily that did hit. But this really was my stronger play, where I was like, this is really like a fade of Arizona and fading the sharps too. There were so many sharps all over this Cardinals team here. Didn't understand. I gave all my logic. I can reiterate it real quick. Cardinals just so inconsistent. The over-under total was concerning as well. Defense for Washington normally was horrendous, but could fucking Kyler Murray just was this going to be class relief? Was he going to come back to life, or was this just going to be a dud spot? And this was a dud spot for Kyler. I'll say this too, like this was one of the few games in the 4:00 slate. I know we missed it because we were on our way to Baltimore, but rewatching it, they kind of kept up in that first quarter, and all of a sudden they just like fell off a cliff, and it was like they could just do nothing right. Jaden Daniels, I mean, I gotta say, and he's a rookie, and I could be a dum-dum, Jaden Daniels might be one of the best quarterbacks I have ever seen run the read option or RPO. That guy just does it so smooth. There were so many plays where Arizona brought the blitz on the right, and he was just literally looking down. Didn't even look behind him to see. He just knew to hand it off and let him go. Got a touchdown on that play. RPO again, could have handed it off. Goes for the read option, runs blitz, gets yards. Does it again, throws the ball deep. That was where I'm seeing concerns. His deep ball accuracy is very, very bad. But I think if he just fine-tunes it, he's going to be a fucking dangerous quarterback. And I just got to say, he looks better and better each week.
I think there's a stat. I forgot what it was. Some like within a certain amount of games, completion percentage. Pretty sure he's number 1, Peyton Manning number 2. Like 26 for 30 again. And you're right. You're 100% right. Like Arizona comes out strong. They get a touchdown. I'm on the right side of that handicap. And then literally 5 touchdowns later, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And Jaden Daniels didn't even have that great of a game. On paper, he didn't.
But he was 26 for 30. And Washington ran the ball at will. And I don't know, maybe it was a look-ahead spot for Arizona because they're playing the Niners. Like, I don't know. It's hard for me to really tell. The bettors like them again, open 9.5. They're down to 7. Meanwhile, the Commanders are a 3-point dog at open. They're a 3.5-point favorite now. So
makes sense.
Going to be very to bet on. I don't know. I'm scared to jump on the Washington bandwagon, but
money line. I think if Washington money line gets down to -150, I think I'm gonna hit it. I don't know yet about the 3.5 yet. Like in my opinion. As far, by the way, speaking of that 7, it's down to 7 on DraftKings right now for the Niners.
Yeah. I don't know.
Don't know for Mansman.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's weird too because I mean they played a toss-up game with the Giants. They got waxed by the Buccaneers. They probably should have lost to the Giants. But then they really manhandled the last 2 games. Like, really, pretty much after the first quarter, they kind of no doubter. Maybe you got to bet against Washington first quarter. Maybe it takes some time to get going. I don't know.
Yeah. Cleveland's another beast, who, by the way, I think we're going to get to. Actually, no, they're not next. They're going to be.
Okay.
Way. Yeah, here we go. Next up, Kansas City 17, Chargers 10. This is again, like, this is the narrative. Chargers get off to a great first half start. Chiefs can't get anything done right. And then second half, it just sort of flipped. Chargers couldn't. They did a lot of offensive production, just couldn't score any points. The Chiefs just managed to pull away enough to get the win. Rashee Rice out for the year. Torn MCL, I think it was, or ACL. He's gone, donezo for the year. Justin Herbert, much needed bye week rest. Got the loss. This was the only game. This is the second game so far this year in 5 weeks. We have a push. We handicapped this at 7. So this is another game where, like, depending on where you got it. Yeah, this is another game where, depending on where you got it, you either covered or you didn't. So contest play, like you said, it was 8.5, but in terms of betting it closer to game time, like a 7 just.
It's just so hard because the Chiefs keep having these like toss-up games, and then they win at the very end. And yeah, I mean, not much to say about this. We've said it all before. The Chiefs go, they find a way to win. The Chargers, they needed the bye. Herbert's been banged up. He doesn't look like a top 15 quarterback right now. He's like a game manager, and that's just not going to be good enough against these better teams. So yeah, I mean, it's really, I don't have much more on this. It's pretty straightforward. We've seen it 100 times. The Chiefs just find ways to win. The Chargers just, good effort, played well, but just not good enough. Maybe next time it will be. I think they'll be better after the bye.
I will say Chiefs defense stopping the rush, I think, was key to this. 14 carries, 32 yards for J.K. Dobbins. They really couldn't get much else going. Only another 23 after that, so 55 yards rushing for the Chargers all game. Not going to win. And that's honestly
story fun while it lasted.
Oh, yeah, Carson Steele. Yeah, that was cool, but,
Kareem Hunt time.
Yeah. Yeah, time for Kareem woman kicker hunt. Punt like Hunt, folks. Punt like Hunt.
Gotcha.
All right. Last up, 4 o'clock slate. We got the Cleveland Browns versus the Las Vegas Raiders. 16-20 was the final. You can notice here there are no DeGents studs at the game. That's because I'm going to declare this was the dog shit game of the week. That's right, folks. I'm putting this worse than the Broncos-Jets game. This was just terrible, terrible football. Although I will say there was at least offensive production. The reason why is that these teams had no reasons why they couldn't produce. It wasn't like every player was dropping the ball. Cleveland, again, I hate to say this for Cleveland because I'm down on Deshaun Watson. This is like a phony loss for Cleveland. They had a fucking long bomb to Amari Cooper taken away with a bullshit hold. I think both teams did end up missing a field goal here. Cleveland, again, the narrative of first quarter looked great, was in control of the game. Deshaun Watson looked good. And then there was just this momentum switch in the second quarter where the Raiders started driving. The Raiders took the lead. And it just started kind of going back and forth, but really it was just like really not good football all around. And even at the end when the Browns were driving against the Raiders, 4th down, this Browns O-line has no answer for the blitz. And this is probably why Deshaun Watson's struggling, but like at some point you would think that like he needs to understand how to adjust and I don't know, being a quarterback, learn to protect yourself against the blitz. No Max Crosby, no fucking problems. Like, that's unacceptable. If I was a Cleveland Browns fan, that's unacceptable to lose in that fashion.
Watson's got to go. Watson's playing like an XFL quarterback. Another game, I don't have much to say. I told you, the Raiders, Gardner Minshew, 130 passing yards, still continues to start. I don't understand it. The Raiders are not going anywhere with him. Okay, I'm like praying that Minshew, first quarter of the Denver game, gets sacked and not seriously injured, but has to go out. So Aiden O'Connell could be the quarterback, and I could win my Raiders plus 6.5 bet. My Raiders 6.5 win total bet. Because I
I
feel
will
like the
say-
Raiders could do it. They could
Go
beat
ahead.
bad teams. Like they could beat bad teams like Cleveland, but their quarterback play is dreadful. Gardner Minshew
Oh, it's
is
horrendous.
dreadful.
Oh, it's
Oh my God,
horrendous.
that was you're 100% right. Dog shit game of the week. Terrible.
Dog shit game. Browns should have won. They didn't. Even when they drove and got close, it was just like every time they got close to getting into a good drive and good momentum, Raiders just brought an extra 2 to blitz, and Deshaun Watson had no answer. Just kept going to the ground every time. And it just seemed like when he was doing good in the air, he couldn't stay consistent. He would then throw like way over people's heads or throw it into the dirt, or throw it to the guy who was short and just like not get the conversion. I just don't understand why Watson is struggling as hard as he is now. Like it really is a conundrum. But we only got 3 games left. We're at the hour 11 mark, so hopefully we'll get into this one. Then maybe we could rapid fire Monday night. But all right, Sunday Night Football. We were there. We saw it live in front of our own faces. Buffalo 10. Whoops, I did not put the score up for Baltimore. Let me fix that. That's right. It was 10-35. Baltimore gets a much needed win at home Sunday night. Buffalo just struggles to get anything offensively done. Derrick Henry, stud of the week, by the way. 24 carries, almost 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. And a funny DeGents story real quick. Fuck that kid who live bet Derrick Henry to get 200 rushing yards and was just fucking like sweating out a bet live in front of us. And when I say kid, I'm not talking like a 20-year-old. I'm not talking 19 or high school. I'm talking like a 12-year-old kid with his dad's phone fucking betting on live bet Derrick Henry 200 yards. 1 yard away, couldn't get it done. So, yeah, screw that kid.
Well, yeah, salvage my night. Yeah, it was not much to say about this one.
Oh, come on. You have nothing to say about your Bills?
Not yet. The McDermott rant is coming. They can salvage it with a win this week. If they lose again, it's going to be full blast on McDermott, who cannot show up in a big game, can't win a big game, why they're calling trick plays. Who the hell let them call a trick play and get their quarterback fucked up? I don't know. But no, look, it was looking back on it, having time to digest it. It was a really bad spot for Buffalo. Baltimore, prime time, at home, game they needed to win. Coming off what was really a phony final against Dallas. Buffalo, big win, Monday Night Football, short week in Baltimore. Weather not great. There were some concerns about their lack of preparation. But all in all, like, it was a bad spot. I think Buffalo's fine. I think Baltimore, it's kind of weird because on the one hand, hearing a lot of sharps. Well, Baltimore should be at the top of the power rankings.
Yeah.
Really? After one game? Like, remember when they lost to the Raiders? Like, have we forgotten about that when they let Gardner Minshew? When they let Gardner Minshew throw for 300 yards and beat them late in the game. So I'm not ready to anoint the Ravens. But at the same time, the line opened at 3 on the road in Cincy. Since open, the line is going down. The Ravens are 2.5 now. And I might have even gotten them less than that. I might have gotten them at like 1.5. So that to me is a bit odd. That line. I still think people are overvaluing the Bengals way too much. So it didn't match my expectations because I've heard a lot of sharps. Baltimore's back. They're the greatest. They're going to the Super Bowl. Dude, it was one game. They had a rest advantage against the Bills. I think the Bills will be fine. I think the Ravens will be fine. I expect both teams to be in the playoffs. We did not perform well. And I think the one thing is the injuries for the Bills maybe showed up. You know, you're missing Bernard. You're missing Teron Johnson. Taylor Rapp gets hurt. I think some of those injuries, especially at linebacker, are coming back too. haunt them. That's something that's going to need to be addressed. But all in all, I'm not going to overreact off of one loss. McDermott and crew has a chance to bounce back in Houston against a team that I think is incredibly phony. Show us what you got, Buffalo. I think they have the ability to do it.
There you go. Yeah, this was a big spot for the Ravens. I doubted primetime Lamar. I doubted Sunday Night Football Lamar. And, yeah, he made me eat my words. That's really, betting-wise, that was really my only trend I was concerned with. Ravens are just really good at Sunday night, especially at home in primetime. They've been killers, and I just sort of ignored that for the sake of the Bills. Probably should have paid more attention to that. Something I'm going to just keep in mind. Just like you said, the spot play for the Bills wasn't the best.
Yeah, the spot play was a stupid handicap, a fan handicap. Thinking about it, that was a really good spot for Buffalo. Really bad.
Yeah, I gotta say that's where that goes. All right, Monday Night Football.
Take away, just real quick. They're a big mistake away from being right in that game. If they don't do that stupid play and don't fumble, this is probably a 4-point game. Okay.
100%. Yeah, Monday night, Tennessee 31, Miami 12. You like Tyler Huntley in this game? Why? You have to.
There will be a
defend yourself.
For that.
Defend yourself.
No, here's my problem. I fell into the trap of Mike, whatever his name is, Mike McDaniel, was actually a good offensive coach. Well, it turns out this year, the biggest problem with Miami is they can't run the ball. And I even said last year in certain spots, Miami needs to run the ball to be successful. If they can't run the ball, they're no good. Well, this year they can't run the ball at all, and their offense is putrid. And that's even with Tua. Remember the Bills game when Tua was throwing 4 interceptions? So it's not just like a Tua thing. Remember Jacksonville? And we thought, Miami-Jacksonville, that was a good game. Jacksonville's 0-4 now. They've gotten blasted multiple times since that game. Miami sucks. Their coach, Mike McDaniel, way, way, way overrated. They can't run the ball. I thought Tyler Huntley would be able to, but the problem is, and I'm realizing it now, Miami can't run the ball. Their offense is terrible. And they're not running the ball well. They're doomed. Like, if this team can't find a way to run the ball, they're screwed. Because they have no...
And now they're 1-point dogs against the Patriots.
I mean, it's just such an overreaction. I guess I could see why. And honestly, my stupidest play of the day, not live betting Tennessee with Mason Rudolph. Will Levis, another interception. This guy sucks. Will Levis is garbage. This guy needs to be permanently banned. The Tennessee would be in line for the playoffs if Mason Rudolph were quarterback.
I gotta say, my handicap riding on Will Levis being functional, that was the problem was I had Tennessee as my last leg in the round robins. Jaguars lost, and who was the Bills? The Bills were my fourth leg, that lost. So I needed Tennessee to win for my round robin to come through. And they took an early lead, and I even was texting you, and I was like, I need to hedge this at some point, but I just don't know when. And then Will Levis went out, and it was Mason Rudolph, and I was like, you know what? Let me put my foot down and just let me put the phone down and just wait, because if Tyler Huntley drives and scores, then I might get a better number. We'll see. And everything, basically what ended up happening was I was like, I'll hedge eventually, because Tyler Huntley will drive, and then nothing happened, and I was like, maybe I'll get a good number. I could have got up to 13.5, crazily enough, and I still didn't do it. I literally waited till it was like 30-1 for Miami to win live odds, and I threw literally like a couple bones just to say, like, okay, God forbid something happens. Like the last Monday night game they played, there's my hedge.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose. I lost like a couple bucks. It was like, okay, whoop-de-fucking-do. To get the hedge. Tony Pollard, 22 carries, 88 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. The rushing, I think the Titans have finally identified their they finally have an offensive identity right now, and it's got to be through Tony Pollard.
No, I mean,
That's
their
really
problem is if you play a Mason Rudolph game, no big chances, no bad turnovers, no stupid plays, you've got a chance to win. So if they continue
right.
to do that, they got a chance. The turnovers, though, that'll kill the team. So that's what they got to.
100%. All right, last game. Boy, oh boy. Didn't see this coming. 42 Detroit, Seattle 29. Goff with a perfect game. 18 for 18, 292, 2 touchdowns through the air. Even caught a reception touchdown himself from Amon-Ra St. Brown. You must have been happy about that. But
Yeah, well, it was too little too late, but
yeah, Jesus God, like this was, I will say, I don't know if this makes me sound like a Dumbo or like Joe Public. I don't think my handicap about the Seahawks was really wrong here. Detroit literally just played a perfect game. And no matter how good you do, unless you're perfect back, you don't win. I thought Seattle did really well on offense. Geno Smith for sure showed up. The Seahawks defense, though, I think has a bunch of questions that need to be asked at this point. I don't know if they're a team I'm going to be betting on if it comes down to a shootout ever again this season, just because I think I've seen time and time again, like, the defense just can't keep them in the game. It has to be that they outscore they have to outscore the opponents and just keep getting touchdowns. They can't settle for 3. They can't, stop a drive to save their lives.
Well, thankfully, Detroit kept me from losing more money on Monday night. So I flubbed the first game, but I got Detroit pretty easily. So that was good. Detroit's a good team, and I expected the Seahawks. I had them in a fade spot, and that worked out. Yeah, Detroit's a good team. Their offense finally came through. I was waiting for Detroit to have a game like that. And again, one of those games where it probably looks closer than it was. Detroit was pretty much 80 to 90% for most of the game to win. They got off to a pretty good start and kind of controlled the game.
It got close at like the early 4th, and that was it. Like after that, it was
couldn't really get a stop. Seahawks couldn't get a stop, and they got a lot of yards, but not necessarily. Well, they did get a lot of points. I mean, I don't know. It's a fluky game. It's a weird game. I think Seattle played okay. No issues with them. I just thought they were a little overrated to begin with. And Detroit, like you said, they just played kind of a perfect game. I mean, literally, Jared Goff, 18 for 18. That'll do it. And, Detroit's a good team. I think they haven't hit their stride yet. I think their defense got to play a lot better. But,
I think they hit their – this game, they offensively hit their stride. Like, this was the game. Like, and honestly, my handicap kind of hedged on was Detroit's offense going to, like, hit their stride in this game? Was their offense going to show up? Because for the last 3 weeks, their offense has been sort of hit and miss, where it was like Jameson Williams or nothing. Maybe a David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown here or there. But, like, I mean, even against the game with Arizona, 20-13, not really all that impressive. I didn't see this coming out of Detroit. And, God, I mean, Dan Campbell bit my kneecaps and proved me wrong for taking Seattle plus 4.5. But that's a game I would do again. I mean, and to be honest with you, like, I'm looking at Seattle again next week playing the Giants at home. But I love what I saw with the Seahawks offense. The defense, not so much. But I think it also, like, Detroit, if you play a perfect game like Detroit did, it's like, I don't know who's going to beat them. I don't know if anybody does, truth be told. All right. That's it for the week 4 recap, folks. We are going to jump right into the Thursday night football picks. Then we'll give out our closing remarks. Money Management, any final words about week 4 before we move on?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. It was a tough week. Didn't do particularly well, but the beautiful thing about NFL betting, there's always another week.
Amen to that. Real quick, I'm going to give out my numbers and then I'll give out the quick trends I want you to know for next week, aka week 5. So last week I went 6-9-1 ATS, 9-7 money line, 8-8 on the over unders. My 4 trends for you: road underdogs last week. They went 6-4 ATS, but they only went 4-6 straight up. Division road teams went 3-1 straight up, but only 2-1-1 ATS. Thank you, Kansas City, for that. Winning teams coming off of primetime games the week before are now 2-7-1 ATS. Losing teams coming off of Thursday Night Football and Sunday Night Football the week before are 0-6 ATS. And now we're going to jump into a game where none of those stats really matter except for the divisional road spot. Tampa Bay Bucks are plus 114 road underdog, plus 1.5 traveling to Atlanta Falcons, who are minus 134, 1.5 point favorites. Over under set at 43.5. I want to say it is your go since it's an odd numbered week.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. Okay. I'll go first. I'll go first.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Because you went first. Oh, no. I go first. You went first for the Bills in last week, so I think it's my turn. Because Bills was week 2. I think I'll be short and sweet with this one. Okay, here we go. Short and sweet. This is my dog of the week. I am going with Tampa Bay plus 114. The Falcons historically have not done great against the Tampa Bay Bucks. I want to say it is the 6 of the last 7 the Falcons have lost to the Buccaneers outright. Now, last year was the first year with Baker Mayfield where they split the series 1-1. See here, 3, 6. Okay, so it's 6 of the last 8 the Falcons have lost. And they are 3-7 straight up in the last 10. With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight losses at home as well for the Falcons. Another thing, too, is the division road dog, which I did mention somewhat for last week. But overall, division road dogs are sort of a weird split. 3-5 ATS. They are only 2-6 on the money line. But I just think this is a spot where, like, you look at both these teams, and I know Tampa's coming off another good win, so you're kind of expecting a loss, but the Falcons literally barely won a game against the Saints with no offensive scores. I don't think Tampa on special teams or even with Baker Mayfield, I don't foresee him throwing pick sixes left and right. I don't foresee them letting kickoff returns for a touchdown go. I would rather bet on the Bucs defense. I'd rather bet on Baker Mayfield. I actually really love Baker Mayfield as a road dog. 8-2 ATS since he became a Buccaneer. So, I mean, and with the game at only 1.5 points, I ask myself, does it make a difference here? My answer is no. So, Tampa Bay Bucks dog of the week, 2-unit play.
Love it. I'm on the same side as well. Like I said, part of what I'm going to try and do more of is to trust my initial season handicap. I was down on Atlanta. I was up on Tampa Bay. And really nothing I've seen from the year has sort of dissuaded me in that. Buccaneers, clean win last week. They played bad against Denver. They had a clean win against Washington. I believe they played Detroit. Bit of a tough game. They got a win against a really good team. I mean, I think you look at their volume of work, they've played better through the first 4 weeks of the season. And getting them as a small underdog in this game, I just think it's too great. You look at Atlanta, they got that last second win against the Eagles. They really got, I think, a phony win last week. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost, I think they lost week 1. I forgot who they lost to now. You know, I think
Falcons?
These teams are just, yeah, who did the Falcons lose to? Oh, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, got pretty much dominated that game. Look, we talked about the Falcons' struggles. I don't like them in this spot. You mentioned Tampa's success in Atlanta. You mentioned a lot of the relevant sort of stats. If I have sort of spot, initial season power rankings, current team play, and the trends all in favor of a pick, I think you have to go with that. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. And I'm also going the over in this game if I had to choose between the over under, because I believe I saw a stat where 6 of the last 7 games between these teams in Atlanta has gone to the over. We know Baker Mayfield's going to be throwing the rock. I think they're going to be able to score on this Atlanta defense. The Saints themselves had some success last week against this Falcons defense. This to me feels like, even though it's Thursday night, that it could be an over game and there could be some scoring in this game.
Yeah, I concur with that as well. And by the way, one more trend for you. Since last year, Falcons as a home favorite, 2-7 ATS. So not a good spot for them. Great spot for Tampa Bay here, according to the stats. And let's see here. Since 2022, I wanted to say the Falcons. I agreed with the over, but I wanted to say I think it's Falcons just at home. With them being in the dome, I think they just naturally go ahead and hit the over. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up. They're 8-12 just at home, but maybe it was a home dog situation or something, or home favorite. But no, I like the thinking. I think between the two teams, like, we had a regression Kirk Cousins game where he got no points. Primetime Kirk Cousins Thursday night. Not a spot I really want to bet either. I mean, we could go on with trends and stats, but
here we go.
Yeah,
Couple other trends to go with here. I think you mentioned some of them. Atlanta past 4 seasons, 6-18-1 ATS in games after a win. Tampa Bay 9-2 ATS in their last 11 games outside of Tampa. So
yeah,
basically, Falcons off a win bad, Tampa on the road good. And I think the spot and the current form of the teams favors it as well.
absolutely. All right, I got nothing else here. I'm with you on the over. I love Tampa in the spot. Join us Friday, folks, for our Week 5, the remainder of our Week 5 handicaps and predictions. We'll give out the remaining 13 games for our predictions. I got nothing left to say. Make sure you check out our buddy Vitrell's podcast, the Dyna Pros Fantasy Football Podcast, wherever you get your streaming platforms. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and make sure you follow us on x.com/DeGents podcast. Monty Mansman, any final remarks before we sign out?
No, I'm actually betting that money line bet right now. I like it that much.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the same. All right, with that said, I'm Steve Big Bucks Beta.
Money Mansman signing off. And
as always, folks, go win that motherfucking money. Weird.